Welcome to another episode of the starting lineup. This one's a little different. We are not live for this one. I came up with this idea. Reason had no idea. I said, "Hey, let's record," and he was like, "What?" And I said, "Surprise!" So anyway, we're gonna give you best of both worlds, especially when we get the channel going and everything. We're gonna give you best of both worlds. We're gonna be live. We're also gonna have recorded stuff, maybe short form stuff. I'm telling you, when this thing's up and running, me and Reason keep talking about this. Like every time we get together, we're like, they're not ready for September.
Might want to edit that one out.
I'm going to, but then I'm going to have you saying you might have want to edit that out, and
That
people are
one,
going to be like, "What did he
what
edit
he
out?"
say? Yeah. You become the conspiracy theorist.
So what we're going to talk about today is obviously minicamp was over on Thursday. We're going to talk about little of what we're hearing from about Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, minicamp culture, all that stuff. So we are going to start talking about Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. So Ramsey's gone. There's no
Yeah,
ifs, ands, or buts
over.
about that. Jonnu Smith, on the other hand, Adam Schefter came out. We both talked about it on our channels, saying that he had an excused absence from minicamp and that he was given permission to seek a trade. Have you heard anything else about the Jonnu Smith situation?
I've said the whole time that I think part of this is leverage. I think, well, the first thing is we have a great relationship, right, as a franchise with Rosenhaus. So it's
Yeah,
not
he has
like, it's
an
athletes
office
first
in the
and
building.
exactly, right? So, I don't know, man. I get the feeling that, talking about Ramsey, all of a sudden the Steelers are in on Ramsey and not
Uh-huh.
Jonnu Smith. Like, it just seems like they're trying to come to some sort of an agreement, and it's a leverage battle in the media because they know Jonnu wants to retire a Dolphin,
Mm.
and they're kind of using that against him. I I I think the longer this goes on, it actually works out in the Dolphins' favor, dude. You know what I mean? And then I got a really good one for you. When I had Tobin on the show, he raised a really good point. You've seen McDaniel talk about Jalen Ramsey lately, okay? We've
Mhm.
never seen him frustrated or like that out on a player before. And look at what Tyreek's done to him, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
let me ask you this. What do you think the breaking point was for McDaniel? Like,
I think what it was I think he was trying to change the culture, or he was trying, which we'll get to, or he was trying to assert some type of not dominance, but like leadership type thing. And I think
yeah.
Ramsey was having no part of it. I think
Mm,
Ramsey's Ramsey, right? He
yeah.
he got the contract he wanted, and he was the best corner and this and that. And I think that was a lot of where Ramsey just didn't take any crap from him. And I think that was probably where he probably said to himself or to Greer, I can't change the culture of this team and coach this team if he's going to undermine me. And I think that's why all of a sudden there was that huge disconnect. They probably sat down and he said that to him. He's like, I need you to have my back. And Ramsey was probably like, kick rocks, dude. I'm not gonna have your back. And then they were like, well, we're gonna mutually part our ways and gonna find a trade partner, which has taken, June 1st.
Yeah.
It is now June 14th with this
Yeah.
when this comes out. So it's like it's gonna be
Almost
2
2 weeks.
weeks.
And with Johnu, like, I mean, I get it to an extent. I mean, you got the 32nd highest annual average salary. You got the
Hmm.
fourth most receiving yards over the last 2 years of any tight end. So I get the desire for a raise and stuff like that. I just keep going back to the fact that Tyreek's not going to be here. And really, honestly, I think even if Johnny was a good blocker, I don't think they'd be paying him right now.
Mm-mm.
I think this is just a stand they're taking with kind of everyone. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I hope, honestly, part of me hopes Jonnu gets figured out,
Mm.
but another part of me is like, hey, if he's asking for ridiculous money, and I've heard he isn't trying to break the bank, but
Yeah.
if he is asking for 10 or 12 million, I mean, I get it, but clearly the market isn't that vast because their best option was probably Pittsburgh with Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
And if they're out on him, what else is out there?
Especially with their guy going down. They had one of their tight ends go down with an ACL injury. Yeah, like who you unless you do a
Parham.
swap with Atlanta, which Kyle Pitts for Jonnu Smith, but again,
Then you're in
Jonnu
the
want
same position, right? I don't know
exactly
if you
because They want to get
Atlanta's
paid.
going and but Atlanta's also if you've like watched them last year, they went to a lot more 11 personnel.
Mhm.
So Kyle Pitts, they were taking him off 11 personnel in run situations. They were bringing in that Wooler kid, and
Mm,
they were having him play tight end on the run situation. So you'd be right back in the same position because, from what I understand, they want to go to a little more 11 personnel. And if that's where you're going, then I get the non Jonnu Smith, and then that falls into Julian Hill's lap.
exactly.
You
Him
know,
and Brown, Farrell Brown, those
yeah,
guys fit, Farrell Brown signing makes more and more sense now, and I feel like that's a John Embry thing where he was like, "If we're gonna run this, you're gonna need this." I think a
yeah,
lot of the moves, and the signings that we did were the secondary coach is like, you need to add so and so. Like the wide
mhm,
receiver coach. I think Prince was like, he needs to
yeah,
go out and get Westbrook. You have a bunch of 5'11" wide receivers. You need a Westbrook type. And same thing with all these other guys. The linebackers coach was probably like, go get yourself a Willie Gay. He's going to be
mm,
really good. That
yeah,
scream when he came out of the tunnel was
it was
still freaking
fantastic,
hilarious
bro.
to
He's been
me.
awesome.
Oh my God. He
Yeah.
again, we'll get to that, but um when do you think Ramsey's going to get traded? Now, obviously, now's the time. Now, we got about little less than 2 months. This is when contract extensions happen and trades
Mhm.
because none of these vets want to do OTAs and mini camps. So it's like, when do you think Ramsey's going to get
Well,
traded?
didn't the Rams just wave a corner yesterday?
Did.
I think what's going to happen is mini camps are going to wrap up, and you're going to
Uh,
get some DC say to their head coach or the GM, "Yo, we need an upgrade here."
mm-hmm.
And that's the best play right now. Wait for mini camp to wrap up. Hope one of these teams needs an upgrade, and then there you go. But the longer this stretches, I mean, should we be expecting anything more than maybe like a conditional fifth? Like,
A fifth that can become a fourth, maybe.
yeah,
Like that's
like
probably, and we'll probably have to give up some cap or pay some of it because
did
that's
you see?
probably what's holding if they didn't give him that extension last offseason, they probably would have been able to trade him already or
Well,
cut him.
did you see that ESPN article about trade scenarios for Jalen Ramsey? I don't know if you saw that. Did you see that?
Mhm.
Did you see the
I think the Panthers one was the best one.
yeah, the one that Solik made was the best one, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. But did you see the who was it? Someone had us trading him to the Chargers. Yeah. It was Seth Walder. He said, "We
We
get a
swapped
7th.
sevens, like yeah.
No, we get a 7th, but we give them Ramsey in a 6th." What kind of sense does that make, dude? Throw him on the bench and say, if you don't want to play, cool, but I'm not paying to get a 7th round pick. That's ridiculous, man.
So
Yeah,
it's
but so look, the Carolina Panthers one was like a 4th for Ramsey,
yeah, which makes sense.
which I would be at the heartbeat at the rate we're at right now. You know what I mean? You know what I'm also worried about though? Athletes first influence.
Mm,
Like they basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Ramsey didn't have a no trade clause with the Rams, but they basically forced his way to specifically Miami.
mhm.
Now, Greer has a pretty tumultuous relationship with athletes first. Is he going to allow them to strong arm him like that?
Mm,
Because
that's
then you,
interesting.
because then if you narrow it down, the team acquiring can play with what they can offer you, whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, so I don't know. Honestly, like it's he's 110% gone, so there's no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But good lord, I wish they could, make this work. But dude, they're really high on a lot of these young kids, bro. That's the fact of the matter. Like, you know, um, obviously Barry Jackson reported that we weren't one of the first half dozen teams that checked in on Jair Alexander. From my understanding, we
Mm,
called Green Bay before the draft and basically just inquired. And when we
mhm,
heard the asking price, plus at the time Green Bay was trying to maybe work on a restructured deal, we
mhm,
didn't even get into trade talks. It didn't even go that far. We basically inquired, boom, that was it. So I don't know, and the problem is, bro, if only already a half dozen teams hit him up the day he got released,
mm.
how much money is he going to make? Are we getting into a
Yeah.
bidding war now?
Yeah, the Dolphins, I could see the Dolphins. I wouldn't be upset if the Dolphins got Rasul Douglas and Asante Samuel Jr., right? Like they contact Asante Samuel Jr., check on his neck, good to go. Will be good for 2 weeks into training camp. Get Rasul Douglas. To me, they need at least one. I would be more comfortable with two starters because it just
But look at the Razul situation. The Razul situation, right? I almost said Razal Ghul. The Razul, hey, if he comes here, we're gonna call him Razal Ghul.
right.
Yeah, it feels like even with the Razul, what is that telling us? They've got a
Mhm.
set number they're willing to spend, and they ain't going higher no matter who the hell you are, right? And my issue with Asante Samuel Jr. here is okay. I think what their plan is we can get him for super cheap,
Yeah.
right? But dude, have you looked into that neck surgery he had?
Hmm.
Like that is some scare, bro. In a high contact position where sometimes guys get caught leading with their head. But
Yeah.
Doug, even leading with your shoulder, you play defense, leading with your shoulder impacts your neck.
Uh-huh.
Dude, this could be, bro, God forbid a head-on collision. I mean,
Hmm.
this could be you think we cringe when Tua
Oh,
takes off. Imagine Asante Samuel. We're gonna be cringing 90% of the game when he tackles, right? Like we're gonna be
hmm
like, oh my God, is this the last one? Like that's what worries me about. Like, okay, let me ask you this: if you could get him for the same price and you're gonna
hmm
spend that money no matter what, who would you take? Jair, who's only played what 34 games over 4 years and only 14 games over the last 2 years, or are you going to take Asante Samuel with that neck injury?
Jair. I would definitely
Yeah,
take
that's where
Jair.
I'm at
Yeah.
too. Right? Like I'd rather take Teron Armstead style for like 10 games than, bro, the wrong hit, your money is wasted and this kid's
Yeah.
retiring.
Yep,
You
exactly, and
know?
I get that's the pushback I got back when I was talking about bringing in Jair Alexander is, "Oh, he's always injured." At this point, it's an upgrade, and the Dolphins need an
Yeah,
upgrade in that
agreed.
secondary. Like,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
take a 7 games with Jair, versus
yeah.
17 without him,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. And hoping that 7 or 8 games, one of the kids learns to step up and gets acclimated. So if he does go down, someone can step up. Like,
yeah, like Ethan
dude,
Bonner takes a step or Storm
and the
Duck all of a sudden starts to,
and the pressure on
get it.
Cam, eh? Like there's serious pressure on Cam
I don't know if he makes
Smith.
the team. I honestly don't think he might not make the team. His Joe Shad put this tweet out saying they asked him what did if he could go back over the past 2 years and do something different, what would he do? And he said nothing.
Oh, that's not good.
I was like, what are you doing?
This guy's falling asleep in meetings and
Like,
like
oh, I don't think his heart is in it. Like, I really
no.
don't. And I don't think him, Tyndall, or Eric Uzakama make the roster. Tyndall might make it because of special teams, but Eric Uzakama is constantly injured, and then Cam
Yeah,
Smith he's just not there. So
bro. They got the talent right with Cam, but where Greer was really supposed to utilize his access to that program through his son
mhm.
was in, on the non-football side of things. He should have had the
Yeah.
best grasp out of anyone. So either he ignored it or the coaching staff wasn't completely honest with him.
Mhm.
Take your pick. You know what I mean? So I
Pretty
don't know.
much. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of the stuff on the field, Dolphins mini camp again wrapped on Thursday, which means camp is essentially done until I think July, like 23rd or something
Yeah,
like
it's the
that.
end of
They'll come
July.
back.
Yeah.
Um, the, what's your thoughts of mini camp? Like some of the things that really popped out at me, and we'll talk about who impressed,
Mm.
but like some of the things that Tua said in his presser was interesting to me, especially like the things he said about Zach Wilson. Like he defended Zach Wilson. He was like, "You don't see when you guys aren't here. He's actually like ripping it." And I'm like, "See, that's a leader right there.
Yeah, I agree.
That's your
Like
guy. That's you're defending your guy." Um, but he
l-
also seems like you brought it up before with McDaniel. He's gotten a little sassy too himself.
the explicitives have been flying from McDaniel, huh? Like, dude, they didn't. Do you notice? They didn't censor out shit, but they made sure to censor out the fuck when he dropped that. Dude, speaking of Zach Wilson, dude, like, obviously we read this stuff. I've talked to people who are there and stuff too privately. I, I haven't heard glowing stuff about Zach Wilson. And what's kind of crazy is McDaniel going back to that presser the day Tua talked. He basically told us Zach Wilson can't throw with anticipation yet, and we're trying to teach him how. Like that's what he basically. And you're like going into what, fifth year? I think Zach. No, fourth, right? Fourth, 21,
Fourth year,
21.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're going into your fourth year. You didn't show it at BYU. You haven't showed it at this level. Like you either, I think anticipation is one of those things you either got or you don't. Like
Yeah.
sure, you can get better at it. But I mean, Tannehill got better at things, but it took him 7 or 8 years and he never got elite at any of it. He just got better at it, right? Like Zach Wilson. And then did you see? And then they asked McDaniel the next day about Ewers, and he basically says the offense fits Ewers' skill set.
Pretty much.
So I'll tell you where I'm at with Zach, I'm gonna be honest with you. Don't fall for any preseason flashes against guys who are going to be stocking the shelves in Walmart in a week. I don't want to see a guy who's going into year 4 beating up on 3rd and 4th stringers, because you should be beating up on 3rd and 4th stringers. This is where I'm getting at, Doug. If you see that this isn't working, give the reps to Ewers.
Yes,
he's
100%.
Not ruined. I talked about this. You got to look at Zach Wilson, right? Look at every player as a ball of clay. Zach Wilson is coming back as like some deformed figure that all these different OCs and coaches have had their fingers in on. Ewers, he's a fresh piece of clay on the marble slab for you to mold. Give the reps to him. If Zach Wilson doesn't look like he's grasping it. Because, bro, here's the thing, Doug. None of the things that will make you efficient or great as a quarterback in this offense are things he's strong at. Right? Accuracy, anticipation, ball placement, quick release, etc. Right? This guy, he just thrives creating out of structure. And Sean Payton said, go. I'm going to pay Jarrett Stidham, who's less talented than you from an arm strength standpoint, and throw out a different arm slots, Zach Wilson. Just from an arm talent standpoint, Jarrett's way behind Zach. Yeah. And Zach's a better athlete. But they still said, sayonara, let's go make this guy the highest paid. And that spoke volumes to me, dude. And you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of Trey Lance, right? Mike McDaniel was, from what I understand, Mike McDaniel was the one who turned a lot of people in San Fran into Trey Lance guys. Shanahan wanted Mac Jones. Now, they both would have been wrong, but at least Mac Jones, we could have probably operated that offense a lot better, right?
Yeah.
And so, this kind of reminds me of Trey Lance. It's crazy, Doug. Let me ask you this. You've seen him bring in Trey Huntley. You've seen him bring in Zach Wilson. You knew he was a huge fan of Trey Lance. The guys he fans over are total different opposite skill sets from the guy he's running his offense with. I mean, I don't get it. It's very confusing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's very funny too, then in his presser, and even in Zach Wilson's presser, I think the next day after, was talking about how Mike McDaniel wants him to throw the ball quicker. And like we're saying, anticipation, quick release, because that's what you need to have in this offense. And it's something you need to have in this offense behind this offensive line, because we don't know what we're going to get. So you need to, that's the thing. That's the reason why Skylar Thompson and Huntley struggled when they came in, when Tua got hurt, is because you need to, with these, the slants, the out and the slant, which is our bread and butter, Tua's going to look at the out and throw it to the slant while he's still looking at the out, or, vice versa. You gotta know who you're going to throw it to. You need to know where those linebackers and corner are. Is the gap open? Hit it. And a lot of times, Huntley and Skyler, they would look and wait. Oh, it's not open, and then they would try to go somewhere else. And it's in this offense, you have to have you have to read quick. You have to anticipation. You have to release that ball.
And you got to be quick. You got to be a lightning fast processor, bro.
I was talking about that with Skyler with his rookie year when he got forced into playing. I was like, he is not, it's up here with Skyler. Skyler has the intangibles, he has the arm strength, he has all that stuff, but it's here. He can't trust his arm, he can't see it and let it rip. It was Jacoby Brissett too. How many times did Jacoby Brissett, there's a deep comeback and he would wait till the guy stopped his comeback and looked at him. And he's like, okay, now I'm gonna throw the ball. No. Some people call it spot throwing, but that's not what it is. It's called anticipation.
Yeah, it is.
You want to lead your guy. If you're throwing a post, you're not going to throw it at him. You're going to throw it to the spot, and you're going to have your guy run to it and take it for the rest of the way. How many times do we have those touchdowns with Waddle and Hill on posts?
Yeah.
Because boom, right to where it's
Yeah.
supposed to be
You
instead
gotta
of having
throw
to
it
come
in
back.
you gotta throw it during the stem, not when the break happens. And I don't know if you ever saw the episode, but when I had JT O'Sullivan, I talked to him about the whole spot throwing narrative. And he's right. Every throw in the NFL is you're throwing to a
A
spot.
spot.
Like this isn't high school where you can just see it and fastball. The athletes
You're getting
are
picked.
elite. Yeah, the window's closed. You have to have anticipation. Like if you don't, you're just not going to survive for very long, right? And like that's just how the game works, man. Like you've got to trust, and then we've seen Tua adjust, right? Like
Mhm.
to Tyreek running the wrong route and he still makes the right throw, right? Like
That was still the funniest where Tyreek's like, "How are you gonna throw me that ball?" And then he's like, "You were
watches
supposed to
the
be
film.
here."
Yeah, and then he
And
watches
then
the
he and
film.
then he goes on the sideline, he's like, "My bad, man. I actually
Yeah,
ran the
yeah,
wrong
yeah,
route." Like,
yeah,
"You were
yeah,
right, you
yeah.
were right."
Yeah. And you remember how frustrated they were getting because McDaniel and Tua actually started calling him out for it last year,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, because it was leading to turnovers,
And the
right?
the best one was the Cowboys game, because a lot of people saw that Cowboys game and that pass to Tyreek Hill down the left sideline, and they said Tua threw the wrong pass, and then Shannon Sharp came out and he said, "Nope, Tyreek was supposed to be near the numbers. He went towards the sideline. If he went near the numbers, that's the run-in touchdown." Next play, though, Tua's like, "I'm hitting Waddle down the other
Yeah.
sideline, and
Boom.
you're gonna." But yeah, like the whole spot throwing stuff, please show me a route where a quarterback's not throwing it to a spot. Even a
Yeah.
comeback. You don't throw the ball when the quarterback and the receiver's looking
When they're
at you.
coming back, no, you throw it when their back is towards you.
A go
Yeah.
route. Are
Yeah.
you gonna throw it to him, or do you wanna lead him,
You
throw
got to lead
5,
them.
6 yards in front of him,
Yeah.
a spot, so
Yeah.
he like, every pass is a spot. You're gonna throw it to the
Yeah.
spot. "Oh, but he throws it to the spot even if they're not
Dude.
because that's their
Yeah.
job. The receiver's job is to get to the spot.
Got to read the
It's
coverage,
just a
got to read the
stigma.
leverage. You
It's a
got to
stigma
know.
because Sherfield came out and made it seem like it's a bad thing. If you're not at the spot, he's gonna well, that's your job. Get to the spot.
Yeah. And
He's
then
not
for
he's not Josh Allen who can escape the pocket and, play backyard
yeah.
football.
Yeah, and wait for a running back to break their route and totally like come back to the quarterback for the ball. That's not his game, right?
It
Like,
wasn't Peyton Manning's game, it wasn't Tom Brady's
yeah.
game, it wasn't Drew Brees' game. There's different styles of quarterback, and I've
And,
talked about this.
and look at this. We're talking about backups, right? How good was Teddy Bridgewater for New Orleans when he came in for Drew Brees? Huh?
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
good was he? And then he
I
comes
wanted to
in
sign
here,
him. I remember that.
and did we even get half of that?
Nope.
I know certain people will defend him, which I don't know why,
That
right?
Vikings game. It was the Vikings game that everyone was hooping and a hollering, even though that long
Well,
pass to Tyreek Hill had to come back 4 or 5 yards, and then it
yeah.
was just such an ugly
Well,
throw.
hold on. I know Waddle didn't have a single touchdown when between Skyler and Teddy that year and their backups. Did Tyreek have it? I don't think Tyreek have a touchdown? He only
Let
had
me see.
one. But I remember Tyreek's numbers, he went from like 98 yards a game to like 92 yards a game, but Waddle went from like 80 high 80s to like low 60s with Tua out. Like his
So
average dropped massively.
so you had the Vikings game where he had 177 yards but no touchdowns. Yeah, because it was what? 2 games. It was
Mm.
the Jets game and the Minnesota game.
And the Jets game, he was out pretty quick.
Yeah, 7 for 7, 47 yards, no touchdown, Jets. Then he had a big game against Minnesota. He had 177 yards, no touchdowns. He didn't get his first touchdown until the Chicago game that year.
And it wasn't Tyreek or who? It wasn't Tyreek or Waddle, was it?
It was Tyreek, but the Tua was in by that point. Tua came in
Okay.
for the Pittsburgh game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So you're talking about the Tyreek had 177 yards in that Minnesota game.
Yeah, that was but
Yeah,
no
yeah.
touchdowns, like
No
you said,
touchdowns.
with
Yeah, yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Because I pretty much remember that. Like Tyreek only went down like 6 or 8 yards. I remember Waddle's numbers just plummeted, and I remember neither one had caught a touchdown.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember that specifically. And let's be honest, the Minnesota game, Bridgewater got up for that because who drafted him and who gave up on him?
Teddy Bridgewater. He had a
Yeah,
concussion, right?
yeah.
That's why he got
No, remember his leg got snapped in half
yes. And then he came
in
he come back
practice.
and he came back and took the knee to win the game, and they celebrated him coming back on the field. I
Yeah,
like Teddy
yeah.
Bridgewater. I wanted
Yeah,
him
he
to
was
I
good.
wanted the like you said, when he was with the Saints, I wanted the Dolphins when he became a free agent, and then he went back with the Saints because I think he
Yeah.
met with Miami, he went back. I wanted him because I was like, he's gonna be a good backup, and it just didn't work out. And that's another thing. Like Booger McFarland talked about this.
Mm.
Um, is that McDaniel's biggest problem? Is that he doesn't make the offense more susceptible for other people to run it? Is that like a big problem?
I don't know if it's so much of that as a problem as are they doing a good job evaluating guys that fit and then developing them?
Mm,
Like, you look at Quinn Ewers, it feels like Quinn Ewers is the only one they've brought in with a similar skill set who thrives in the certain areas that Tua thrives in,
mhm.
right? Like, everyone else has kind of been like Huntley wasn't a fit,
No.
right? What's crazy was Bridgewater was a Pro Bowler. I think we
Yeah.
all thought he was gonna fit, right? I
Uh-huh.
don't think we had high expectations for Jacoby. I was, dude, you would think a guy who's been around the league the way Bridgewater had that he'd pick it up no problem, right? Like, but he didn't.
No.
So, I mean, I just think this comes down to a I don't I don't know if we're great at evaluating quarterbacks with our current regime. That's what also
Mm.
scares me if they want to move off of Tua. Like I don't know how great they're not showing like Skylar Thompson waste. Every backup they brought in, it's been it's been musical chairs basically.
And next year is a great draft to go get yourself a quarterback if you're gonna
Bro,
move off of one.
I'm gonna tell you this: if Tua goes down, uh, Garrett Nussmeyer or Lenore Sellers, baby, all
That's the thing
day.
too, because like we just went into like a 5-10 minute tangent, defending the crap out of Tua, but me and you both will sit on our channels. If Tua gets hurt week 3, week 4, whatever, and he misses 3 or 4 games, me and you both are gonna be like, time to
It's
move on.
over. Yeah, you
That's it.
can't.
We can't keep doing this. And you know,
No.
this is as much as we'll sit here and talk about, Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer. Tua's in there as well, man. He needs to, do something this season because, like I said, me and you both will sit here and say, it's time to move on. 2020, like you said, you named them 2026. Great year to go get yourself a quarterback. And we could potentially have multiple thirds and multiple fourths, and
Mhm.
you can move up and get whoever you want. So, um, talking about camp, who impressed? I think that's a big one. Now, I will say this,
Go
and I
ahead.
teased it a little bit. The pass rush.
Mm,
Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Chop, all got an orange jersey regardless. I think orange jerseys are just hoopla, but they all
yeah,
got one. And
agreed.
if those guys can all three stay healthy, Jesus. At some point, take one of them and put them at middle linebacker, and then you send those three, and you have Sealer and you have Grant in the middle. Oh my God. Like, how are you gonna stop that? Like, to me, like the pass rush in Tua, but Tua's always impressing during OTAs and minicamp. Like that's just his bread and butter. Just carving people up with his arm. But I'm excited with the pass rush. And Wednesday was pressure day where they were, doing pressure sets, and then interception after interception from the backups because they were getting after him. So for me, I'm mostly impressed with how those guys are doing up front.
Bro, Zach Wilson and those pick sixes, and a couple were dropped on him too. Jeez Louise. Okay, so I did some top performers at minicamp. So I'll go over three net guys that really stood out to me. Okay. Actually, I'll
Mm,
just go over all. Um, Willie Gay Jr.
yes.
I
Yes.
think he's going to end up being one of those signings where we look back and there wasn't a lot of hoopla made about it. I loved it because I wanted him in the draft a couple years ago.
Mhm.
He looks like he's going to push Tyrell Dotson. Like he
That's what I
looks
was
like he's
saying.
going to
Yeah.
lock down linebacker 3. Like to your Channing Tindall point, KJ Britt was making plays. Eugene Asante. We can go back to the Clay analogy. He's a fresh ball of Clay, and he can offer you special teams upside. And he runs a 4.4. So I can see Channing Tindall being pushed out. Buddy, remember when we did players to watch heading into OTAs?
Mhm.
And one of the guys I mentioned was Grayson Murphy.
Mhm.
And holy boy, man, like Mo Kamara, we didn't hear a P. I didn't hear very much. I didn't
No.
read or hear very much about Mo Kamara and Grayson Murphy, man. He looks like the pressure magnet and sounds like he's been the pressure magnet he was at UCLA. Because I don't know if you remember, he had the highest pressure rate of that draft class out of all edge
Mhm.
players coming out. Um, Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
I mean, dude,
Oh my
OTAs,
god.
they were shredding it. And I'm going to tell you this, and I want to hear your thoughts on this one. And I'll say, before I give you that, Jalen Wright's another one. He was apparently cutting
Yeah.
really well. He had a bunch of big runs. He's been shredded. I talk to his father regularly, so I know how hard he's been working.
Mhm.
Jalen Wright's balling. But Jalen Waddle, dude, I'm really wondering if him and Tua had a conversation and Tua was like, all right, it's time for us to show that you are the guy. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like Tyreek's going to be out of here in a year. We both know Tua and Waddle were frustrated with Tyreek and
Mhm.
how he ended in the season quitting. I'm wondering if they had a conversation and Tua said, all right, it's time to make, because remember they did it with Jonnu last year. Now
Mhm.
maybe he's like, hey, it's time to make you a focal point. You're healthy. And let's show these guys that, yo, we'll be fine without Tyreek. Like, I don't know. Like, have you, I mean, they're talking about chemistry, and these guys have been together with since Alabama, Doug. I don't know
Right?
where you're at with this, but it clearly looks like they're trying to make a statement, those two.
And what just the one clip that they put out of Waddle running the, route and then
Mhm.
Tyreek right behind him. Like, obviously, Tyreek is Tyreek, so Tyreek doesn't
Yeah.
need to go all out in minicamp or OTAs, but you like you said, you can see Waddle is like Waddle knows. And he knows that after this year, he is the number one wide receiver in the Miami Dolphins, pay wise, and when it comes to the team, like McDaniel's talking about leadership with Waddle and all this stuff. Waddle is the number one receiver because there's a $33.6 million cap savings. You can cut Tyreek Hill as soon as that clock strikes midnight on the season, and he is not like the Dolphins don't make the playoffs January, whatever. We're done with the Patriots game. You cut Tyreek Hill, boom, you save $33.6 million. Like it's a huge cap increase. Like, so he's gone, and it's Jalen Waddle's job. Him and Malik Washington, who I'm hearing great things from.
Yeah.
Westbrook,
Yeah.
he had a great day in the red zone, which
Yeah.
we needed.
Yeah.
Like again, bunch of 5'11". I wish 6'11". A bunch of 5'11". You just toss the ball up, they just catch it. Bunch of 5'11" wide receivers. They kept throwing fade routes to Tyreek Hill in the end zone. Like, what are you doing? You got
Yeah.
Jonnu Smith. You got, all these guys the year before. Like, what are you doing? So they're just
Listen,
showing they don't need Tyreek. That's what this year is going to be. They're going to feed Tyreek. They're going to let him do his thing. They're not going to negate him, but also they're going to show on the other hand, we can do this without him.
and it kind of looked like we were heading on that trajectory. You guys are talking about all this time. You remember McDaniel's first year, after his first year, we thought it was disrespectful to label Waddle as a wide receiver too, because it was a 1A, 1B
Yes.
situation, right?
Yes.
We're like, yo, this is disrespectful. Like this guy, and we got to get back to that trajectory. If we get back to that trajectory, we'll be fine. You want a hot take?
True.
Whether you take a quarterback next year or not, all right? 2027, F the March for Arch. Go get me Jeremiah Smith, the 19-year-old from Ohio State.
Oh
Dude,
yeah.
that is the best receiver since Julio Jones, and he's probably going to get better. And if anyone doesn't believe me, go on your little YouTube and go type in the playoff game of Ohio State versus Oregon. That was a 19-year-old man against boys in their 20s. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That is who I want in 2027 because, yo, imagine Waddle for 1 year and then you add Jeremiah Smith. Oh, my God.
And isn't
Right?
Jeremiah Smith like a diehard Dolphins fan too?
I think I think he was a Dolphins fan. Yeah. And then you
That'd
also
be
got
a
that young
dream.
kid, the 19-year-old. He put up like 900 yards this year. Ryan Williams from Alabama will be coming out that year. But Jeremiah Smith, bro, 2027, that's the guy, man. That's the guy. That's the answer to our prayers, no matter who's at quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. Just throw the ball up to that man.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's a
That's where I'm
Dolphins
at.
fan.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. That's where
Yeah.
I'm at, bro. Go get me that. You know? Because listen, if you watch Arch, dude, first of all, he's only started 2 games.
Mm,
Second of all, if you just go watch Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden film, when Arch was starting, brother, I know you're talking about with Bridgewater earlier,
mm-hmm.
they were having to come back and adjust to a lot of
Mm-hmm.
footballs. He's
Mm-hmm.
just not ready. He's just
Mm-hmm.
not ready. You know what I mean? So, and they're gonna play out apparently like his full eligibility. So
Yeah, Ohio State star wide receiver Jeremiah Smith grew up in South Florida and said he wants to be drafted by the Dolphins
that
when he
is,
gets to the NFL.
buddy. Listen, I want Lenoris or Garrett if we have a quarterback, if we need a quarterback next year, but I'd
Mhm.
be even more excited about Jeremiah Smith. Dude, I'm telling
Seriously.
you, best since Julio, and he might be better. Like, we might be talking like Calvin Johnson level here, bro.
Mhm.
Like franchise changer. So
Seriously.
that's where I'm at.
Last thing we are going to talk about today is the culture.
Mm,
Culture change. Culture. And I
agree.
noticed that a lot of times you think like, oh, he lost the locker room. They don't want to play for him. They don't want to. A lot of the guys and a lot of the guys that are considered to be the leaders now, like Bradley Chubb, Tua Tagovailoa, all those guys, are also repeating the culture stuff. I think
Mhm.
Austin Jackson talked about it. There's a bunch of guys that were talking about, we got to change the culture. I think Bradley Chubb saying that they were lying last year. it's,
Yeah,
it's
I
a
saw
little
that.
like, what? And then they asked him about it. And again, Mike McDaniel being Mike McDaniel, flubbing all over his lines and the but do you think it is possible to change the culture? Or do you think it's too late? Like obviously he has some of his guys like Tua, like Chubb, like Phillips, Sealer, Brewer, he has those guys that can wrangle the rest of the players in to be like, listen, we're doing stuff different this time. Do you think that they can change the culture or is it too late?
Um, I think a couple things. I think you need more than one off season.
Yeah.
I think they are on the right way though. Like I think this is a reason why. Listen, let's be honest. If they could move off of Tyreek, they probably would.
Yeah.
I think this is why they moved off Jalen Why they're look at how okay they are with moving off of Jalen Ramsey,
Hmm.
and then look at who the guys that seem to be captains now. Bradley Chubb coming back, who called out Tyreek for how he
Mm-hmm.
acted and stuff. I honestly, I think they can, but I do think it takes a little of a roster haul. But I do think they're on the right path. Like I think a lot of the rookies that they drafted, I think a lot of the rookies they drafted have the right idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, like, I think Kenneth Grant, that's the right idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think Jonas Savaianaya, that's the right idea. Bringing in James Daniels, that's the right idea. Like, it looks like they're trying to get more physical and bring in tone setters, and that is who those guys are going to be the ones that set what the culture is. Because remember, what did Grant say at rookie minicamp? He said,
Mhm.
"I'm a culture changer."
Mhm.
Right? Like he already knew what time it was. And dude, you know what will really show us if the culture is changing? If Tyreek is acting out a little bit, whether we're winning and he's not getting the ball enough, or whether we're losing, and if people step up and
Mhm.
they don't act like they're walking on eggshells, that'll show me that they're actually changing the culture. Like Bradley Chubb calling him out the way he did,
Mhm.
that's the type of stuff I want to see right now. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you'd agree with this. Don't you think we're at the point where you guys have talked about it for so long? Like,
Yes, I
it's time
said
to
the
show.
Mhm. I said the same thing. I was like, "This is all nice, right? We've heard this before, culture change." And, we heard it from Tua because Tua even came out and said, "I gotta take care of myself more if I'm not on the field, I need to be there for my teammates." We've heard this how many years in a row. These are
Yeah,
all nice and great things that these guys have said, and
yeah, it's
to
cute.
give us the hopium. I
Yeah,
need to see it. I'm at this point where I'm like, this is it. This is make or break. You
yeah,
guys neither. Two is saying, his wife is upset that he hangs out with the guys too much. And then I think it was James Daniels was talking about them getting together a lot. And, I guess they didn't do that in 2024. So you see, and even with the what practice was it? I think it was Wednesday's practice when they were doing the fumble drill with the water, and then they
mm.
released the video on it.
Yeah, I
You
saw
see
that. Yeah,
Jonah do the front.
flip. Yeah. That's crazy.
Just so people know, Jonah, yes, he hasn't signed his contract. I think you brought this up. Only 3 second-round picks have signed their contract.
Only two. There's 30 that still haven't.
So, but he's there and he's working. So everyone can, take a breath. And he was at OTAs, he was at minicamp, he's working. He's not like Stewart with the Cincinnati Bengals, who this is
That's
off
on
a
the
little bit,
Bengals, though, bro. That's on
little
the Bengals.
little bit off on a tangent. You think he goes back into the draft? He
Apparently,
can,
he can become a free agent.
because they said he can just sit out 2025 season, go back to the
Did you
2026
see
draft.
that he also called them out for not paying Hendrickson? Dude, you know what that's all about, right? Like, dude, that's all about. They're trying to change the language for injury guarantees, and they're trying not to give him guaranteed money.
Mm,
And apparently, it all relates back to their Jermaine Burton draft pick. Dude, what are these guys doing, man? Like, we were all shocked. We thought it was, we were all shocked when they gave Burrow the money. Then when
mhm.
they paid Higgins and Jamar, they're like, okay, well, maybe they're not cheap anymore. And now look what they did to Hendrickson. They basically told him, hey, we're not going to pay you, but go out and ball out this season. Guy goes out and balls out, and they say, yeah, well, yeah, not in the budget. And then now they're doing this with Shamar. Like, I'm not a fan of Shamar. Like,
Uh-huh.
as a prospect, I didn't want anything to do with him. My fear was, oh my God, they're going to love this kid and draft him.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
so I got no horse in this race. But bro, they're trying to do him dirty compared to all the other first round draft picks. It's wild. And Cincinnati's going to lose his bet. To your point, I think if they do not budge on a fully guaranteed contract, which someone just signed in the 20s and just got a fully guaranteed like
Mhm,
2 days ago. I
mhm.
forget who it was, but dude, to your point, I think he'll just enter the draft and they say, yo, okay, I'm not playing this game. I'm out.
As soon as they signed Higgins and Jamar, I was like, they cannot sign Hendrickson as well. Where are you getting the money from? You have Burrow, Higgins, and Jamar, and then you want to sign. Just trade them. Just trade them.
Yeah.
Get the draft picks, and they're screwing over Burrow, because you saw what happened last year. Burrow lit it up, lit the like won games on his own, threw 5 touchdowns, still lost games because their defense sucks. And now they're going to
Yep.
go out and draft the pass rusher, not pay him, and then Hendricks, I'm paying him, and I don't know what they're doing, but anyway, yeah, the whole culture with this team, it something's got to change, right? Because the only way you don't play in the cold and the only way you don't play on the road in the playoffs is you win the division. Are we beating Buffalo? Because from right now, the way I see this team, they ain't beating Buffalo. I think that's the first test we'll see. They
It
beat
all
Buffalo week
depends.
3. I think that'll be the first little and especially the way they beat Buffalo. Because like when we beat Buffalo week 3 in 2022,
Mhm.
we don't get a lot of credit for that. A lot of people will say, well, they were hot, they were exhausted, and you saw the gas was out. Da, da, da. We're playing them a night game in Buffalo. If we beat them, maybe there is a culture change. Maybe this team is different.
Well, I think it all depends. Like if we get the Tua that we got on the road in Buffalo,
Mhm,
all right? If we get that, and okay, like if we get that, we definitely have a shot.
mhm,
The biggest issue with that game was our defense didn't have a stop for the final 45 minutes.
mhm,
Right? You look at the EPA, our defense had one of the worst EPA performances ever against the Sean McDermott team, and our special teams had like literally the second worst, I think, performance ever.
mhm,
Like, if the special team shows up and the defense shows up, and you get Tua that we saw on the road last year,
mhm,
we can win that game 110%.
mhm.
110%. But if we get the Tua that showed up in Houston against the Texans, right? And then hey, what? Look at the Green Bay game again. Tua is good, about to bring third quarter, about to bring us in with on one score. You remember inside the red zone, who
Mhm,
cost us points? It wasn't Tua, it was McDaniel. You remember
mhm.
the personnel usage on that third down where he didn't even have Tyreek or Waddle
Nope.
on the field. Remember that? Like
That's
he had
why,
a bunch
like,
of like
a lot of the things that go on, I question McDaniel.
yeah.
Because you go into that Houston Texans game, don't get me wrong, Tua, he got baited on those interceptions,
Mhm.
2 of those interceptions where the safety came,
Yeah.
but also McDaniel, your scheme, you're going up against the guy that knows your scheme. He
Yeah.
knows what you're gonna run. Change it so they can't beat your quarterback, and that they're not the head coach isn't pointing out, "Oh, screen to Jonnu," and then they shut it down. Like, you gotta be better prepared for these things. Like, it's the same thing I said with Flores. I think Flores is a top 2, top 3 defensive coach in the NFL. He just wasn't ready to be a head coach. He just didn't know how to not be a dictator. McDaniel, he has the potential, but he's just not ready. And that's where you need to take Bevel, put him at OC. Like if he wanted to really save his job, McDaniel, I think that's what he done. They bring Slowick in, make him the quarterback coach, take
Yep.
Bevel, make
And
him
get
the
rid of
offensive
Frank.
coordinator. Sorry, Frank Smith. We'll see you later. Bevel, you're calling the plays, and I'm going to do everything. And then all of a sudden, I think we all would have felt like, oh, there is a culture
At least he's
change.
trying. Yeah, at
Yes,
least he's
exactly.
trying, right? But from everything I've been told and everything I think this guy's protecting Frank Smith. He treats Frank
Hmm.
Smith like Mike Shanahan treated him. Sorry, like
Hmm.
Kyle Shanahan treated him, right? He thinks he's some kind of crown jewel and gem, right? And like his main job is the game planning, right?
Yep.
Like I, Bevel's freaking, coordinated two Seahawks teams in the Super Bowl. You're really going
Hmm.
with an unproven over that? What was Frank Smith's what was his claim to fame? Darren Waller? That he converted Darren Waller to tight end? Is
Pretty
that Frank
much.
Smith's claim to fame here? That's what we're rolling on? Because if we're going on tight end, brother,
Embry there. Like, what are you doing?
yeah, I mean, you guys exactly. I talked about this. They got these great tight end resumes, Doug. What have I seen out of Julian Hill?
Hmm.
You killed Durham Smythe's confidence to prop up Julian Hill. And isn't Julian Hill like top 10 in most penalties over the last 2 years?
How
And
long did
everyone
it
else
take
is a
him?
lineman or a corner.
How long did it take him to uncork friggin' Jonnu Smith?
Yeah. Right?
It took like
Like
weeks. I think
Tanner Connor. What have we got out of this? Remember, was
he,
it 2 seasons ago when he made the roster and all of us were like, whoa. Tanner Connor remember it was his first year or whatever. And that was a surprise. What have we got for that
hmm.
investment?
Hmm.
Right? Like, I'm more excited about Hayden Rucci and what he might offer because at least I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
Some of these undrafted free agent tight ends. We'll see what they can do for us.
yeah, I'm hoping Jalen Conyers. I'm really hoping he turns into something, dude.
Him, I want to see what Armstrong can do. I heard he made some nice catches. You
Yeah.
see that picture of the wide receivers all standing together and
Yeah,
Armstrong is
yeah.
just towering over
Top,
everyone.
bro. Dude, and he led the SEC. And, I like Taylor Green,
Mhm.
but Taylor Green is not known for like being an efficient pocket quarterback. And I think
Mhm.
it's really slept on that this guy led the SEC. I mean, uh, he, I think Andrew Armstrong, and I even think Theo Weiss,
Mhm.
Tajay Washington, from everything I've heard, looked actually pretty good too. So I don't know what you've heard privately about him, but I've actually heard good things about Tajay.
Even
So
D Estridge. I heard some good
yeah,
things about him too. He had
yeah.
that one-handed catch that they released the video of.
Dude, do you remember how high people were on him coming out of the draft? Remember he had that strong senior bowl and
Mhm.
everyone was in love with him and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I actually think we have a sneaky good and just I know we didn't talk about it with the impressive, but let me ask you this before I get out of here. I know the corner Isaiah Johnson, from everything I've heard, has been super
Yes.
impressive,
Yes.
right? But bro, I've heard Melifanu has looked like
Yes.
every bit of the part, and Dante Trader, huh?
Mhm.
Like, he's making plays when the ball comes around him. Like, yo, dude.
Even Campbell, I'm hearing good things about Campbell. I'm
Yeah.
not hearing much about, Ashton Davis, but
Actually,
yeah.
no. Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
my biggest thing with the Fatu Melifonwu when we signed him is I was like,
Health.
he's gonna be yeah. Can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
Because I think that's the only reason Detroit moved on from him, because
Yeah, it is.
he actually played well
He
for
took the
Detroit.
starting job. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Dude,
That's
I'm
why I was
telling you,
like, I
if he
was
stays
banging
healthy.
the table, "Get me one more safety." You still have Justin Simmons out there, you still have Quandre Diggs. Give me one more safety. Give me 2 corners and a safety, and I'll go into the season feeling way better than I do. Also, we need depth on the offensive line. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that before training camp
Yeah.
starts, see where the team's at and,
All right.
talk about the roster.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're gonna essentially take a break. Me and Reason are breaking up. We're not doing this anymore. We can't take it. No, it's just the dead part of this year. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna regroup. We're gonna get ourselves situated for the season because, like we keep saying, we got big stuff happening for the season, and we're gonna pick it back up before training camp starts. We'll get you
Yeah,
guys
right
ready for
before
training camp,
training camp. Yeah.
and it's gonna be fun. But
Yes, sir.
if you haven't yet, go over Inside the NFL, subscribe to his channel. There's some great work over there. Film breakdowns. He has guys on. Tobin was on. Fantastic stuff. What, how much more do I got to tell you? Just go check it out. Go hit his stuff up. We will see. I will let you know. We'll both let you know on our
Yeah.
channels when we're coming back. It's gonna be big. Other than that, like usual, stay classy. My fans out.